This video is an introduction to OSHA. Now, OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It's administered by the Department of Labor. OSHA actually not only oversees construction type industries, but oversees safety on all workplaces. So, what we want to do here is we want to provide an introductory information about OSHA. We're going to cover why OSHA is important to you. We're going to cover what rights you have under OSHA. We're going to cover what responsibilities an employer has under OSHA. We're going to cover a little bit about OSHA standards, and we're going to talk about OSHA inspections and then areas that you can go to for help. Okay, OSHA is important because in 2013, we had 4,405 workers killed on the job. That's about 3.2 workers per 100,000 full-time employees. An average worker dies nearly every day. So 12 workers die nearly every day in the United States. 797 Hispanic or Latino workers were killed from work-related injuries in 2013, and nearly 3 million serious workplace injuries and illnesses were reported by private industry employers in 2012. So OSHA does make a difference. Okay, worker deaths, even though those numbers are staggering, workers' deaths in America are down on an average from about 38 worker deaths a day in 1970 to the 12 in 2013. Worker injury and illnesses are down from 10.9 incidents per 100 workers in 1972 to the 3 per 100 in 2012. So these rules and these regulations do make a difference. So OSHA, as I mentioned earlier, stands for the Occupational Health or Safety and Health Administration. It's run by the Department of Labor. OSHA's responsibility is to improve worker safety and health protection. On December 29, 1970, President Nixon signed the OSHA Act. This act created the OSHA, the agency, which formally came into being on April 28, 1971. The mission of OSHA is to assure safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by setting and enforcing standards and providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. Some of the things OSHA does to carry out its mission is developing job safety and health standards and enforcing them through work site inspections. They also provide training programs to increase the knowledge about occupational safety and health. What rights do you have under OSHA? As a worker, you have the right to a safe and healthful workplace. You have a right to know about hazardous chemicals. You have a right and responsibility to report injury to the employer. You have a right to complain or request hazard correction from employer. You have a right to training. You have a right to hazard exposure and medical records. You have a right to file a complaint with OSHA. You have a right to participate in an OSHA inspection. And you have a right to be free from retaliation for exercising safety and health rights. Okay, I'm going to flip screens here, but I want you to see if you've seen this poster at your place of work. Okay, and you need to know why OSHA was created. So this is a poster that's supposed to be on all workplaces. Okay, it starts off by saying OSHA, job and safety and health. It's the law, and it goes through your rights that I just read to you. And it tells the employers what their rights and responsibilities are. This poster is available for free from OSHA. So if you don't see it, and if you're an employer, you may want to pick it up or order it. Your right to safe and healthful workplace is part of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, the OSHA Act. OSHA was created to provide workers a right to a safe and healthful workplace. It is the duty of the employer to provide workplaces that are free of known dangers that could harm their employees. This law also gives workers important rights to participate in activities to ensure their protection from job hazards. Employers must have a written, complete hazard communication program that includes information on container labeling, has to include the safety data sheets, has to have worker training. The training must include physical and health hazards of the chemicals and how workers can protect themselves. The hazard communication standards require chemical manufacturers, distributors, or importers to provide safety data sheets, SDSs. They're formally known as material safety data sheets. We'll talk more about that in this course. To communicate the hazards of hazardous chemical products. As of June 1st, 2015, the HCS will require the safety data sheets to be in a new and uniform format. You have a right to information about injuries and illnesses. OSHA's record-keeping rule requires most employers with more than 10 workers keep a log of injuries and illnesses that are caused by the workplace. Workers have a right to report an injury and review the current log. Workers also have a right to view the annually posted summary of the injuries and illnesses under OSHA 300A. Please note that when a worker reports an injury, it becomes against the law to retaliate or discriminate against a worker for reporting an injury or illness. Workers may bring up safety and health concerns in the workplace to their employers without fear of discharge or discrimination. The OSHA rules protect employers or workers who raise concerns to their employer or OSHA about an unsafe or unhealthy condition in the workplace. Your right to training. Workers have a right to get training for their employees on a variety of health and safety hazards and standards that employers must follow. Some required training covers topics such as chemical hazards, equipment hazards, noise, confined spaces, fall hazards in a construction, personal protective equipment, along with a variety of other subjects. Training must be in a language and vocabulary that workers can understand. You have a right to examine exposure and medical records. Chapter 1910.1020 lists your right to examine and copy records. Examples of toxic substances and harmful physical agents are metals and dust, such as lead, cadmium, and silica. Biological agents, such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Physical stress, such as noise, heat, cold, vibration, repetitive motion, ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. You have a right to file a complaint with OSHA. You may file a confidential complaint with OSHA if you believe a violation of a safety or health standard or an imminent danger situation exists in the workplace. Workers may request that their name not be revealed to the employer. If a worker files a complaint, that they have a right to find out OSHA's action on the complaint and a request a review if an inspection is not made. Note, often the best and fastest way to get hazard corrected is to just notify your supervisor or an employer. You don't have to call OSHA right away. You have a right to participate in an OSHA inspection. Employee representatives can accompany an OSHA inspector. Workers can talk to the inspector privately, and workers may point out hazards, describe injuries and illnesses or near misses that resulted from those hazards, and describe any concerns that they have about a safety or health issue. Workers can find out inspection results, abatement measures, and may object to dates set for violations to be corrected. A worker has a right to be free from retaliation. Workers have the right to be free from retaliation for exercising safety and health rights. Workers have a right to seek safety and health on the job without fear of punishment. This right is spelled out in Section 11C of the OSHA Act. Workers have 30 days to contact OSHA if they feel that they have been punished for exercising their safety and health rights. Now, your employer has responsibilities under OSHA as well. The employer must provide a workplace free from recognized health hazards and comply with OSHA standards. The employer must provide training required by OSHA standards. The employer must keep records of injuries and illnesses. The employer must provide medical exams when required by OSHA standards and provide workers access to their exposure and medical records. The employer may not discriminate against workers who exercise their rights under the Act. And the employer must post OSHA citations and hazard correction notices. And the employer must provide and pay for most personal protective equipment. Not everything is covered. That's covered more in the OSHA Acts. Okay? Again, employers must report each worker's death to OSHA, report each work-related hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye. The employer must maintain injury and illness records. The employer must inform workers how to report an injury or illness to the employer. The employer must make records available to workers. The employer must allow OSHA access to records, and the employer must post annual summary of injury or illnesses. Now, what are the OSHA standards? OSHA standards are rules that describe methods employers must use to protect employees from hazards. They're designed to protect workers from a wide range of hazards. There's 4 groups of OSHA standards. We have general industry, we have construction, we have maritime, and agriculture. There's no specific standards. The employers must comply with the General Duty Clause of the Occupational Safety and Health Act. These standards also limit the amount of hazardous chemicals, substances, or noise that the workers can be exposed to. They require the use of certain safe work practices and equipment. They require employers to monitor certain hazards and keep records of workplace injuries and illnesses. The most frequently cited OSHA standards, we can click on it, we can go to the cited OSHA standards link and we can find real-time information. So if we want to find, federal and state jurisdictions, we can submit and we can find standards for specific products here. So if I scroll down to construction, and if I find specialty trade contractors, construction of residential buildings, we can click here and we can actually find the number of citations. Fall protections is the far greatest citations with 576 citations, 556 inspections, in excess of $2 million worth of fines. And this is from October 2016 to September 2017. And again, you can find that on frequently cited OSHA standards. And that's at www.osha.gov/PLS/IMIS cited standards. And I will put this link into the course material. How are OSHA inspections conducted? The Occupational Safety and Health Act requires OSHA compliance safety and health officers to conduct workplace inspections at reasonable times. OSHA conducts inspections without advance notice except in rare circumstances. So like imminent danger situations. In fact, anyone who tells an employer about an OSHA inspection in advance can receive fines and jail terms. Different types of OSHA inspections include imminent danger, fatality or hospitalization, workers' complaints or referrals, targeted inspections, so for like local emphasis programs, national emphasis programs, or particular hazards or industries. Inspections also include follow-up inspections. The citations and penalties are basically broken down into several violation types. We have willful, we have serious, we have other than serious, and we have repeated. A willful penalty may be up to $70,000 for each willful violation, with a minimum penalty of $5,000 for each violation. A serious violation, okay, there's a mandatory penalty for a serious violation up to $7,000. Other than serious, OSHA may propose a penalty of up to $7,000 for each other than serious violation. A repeated violation is a violation that's the same or similar to a previous violation. OSHA can propose a penalty up to $70,000 for each repeated violation. So some of the things I want you to think about is I want you to think about what is an example of a reason why OSHA would conduct an inspection to your workplace, and what are the types of OSHA violations, and perhaps give some examples of each. Then we can move on and say, where can you go for help? Okay, you have sources within the workplace, you have sources outside the workplace, and we're going to talk about how to file an OSHA complaint. The sources within your workplace are the best place to go for help to begin with. An employer or supervisor, co-workers, and union representatives. You can also take a look at the safety data sheets for information on chemicals. You should be looking at labels and warning signs. And you should look at employee orientation manuals or other training materials. And then you also can look at work task or procedure instruction. Checklists and other things like that are very important. Sources outside the workplace. The OSHA website and OSHA offices that you could call or write to. Compliance assistance specialists in the area offices. National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, OSHA sister agency. OSHA Training Institute education centers. Doctors, nurses, or other healthcare providers. Public libraries are a great resource. Other local community-based resources. How to raise a concern. Okay, we want to review the handout, the identifying safety and health problems in the workplace, which is in your course material. And you want to think about, as you go through this handout, if anyone has discovered a safety or health problem in the work site. Okay, to file an OSHA complaint, download the OSHA complaint form from the OSHA website. File the complaint online. Telephone or visit a local regional or area office to discuss your concerns. Complete the form, be specific, and include appropriate detail. OSHA will determine if an inspection is necessary. Workers do not have to reveal their name if they file a complaint. Okay, and again, we're going to put some general industry handouts out there. We're going to put some construction industry handouts in your course. Please download and review them. We're also going to throw the maritime industry. And what we want you to be thinking about are what some of the resources inside the workplace that will help you find information on safety and health issues, and what are some of the resources outside the workplace that will help you find information on safety and health resources. So in this lesson, we covered the importance of OSHA, including the history of the safety and health regulation leading to the creation of OSHA and OSHA's mission. We discussed worker rights under OSHA. We discussed employer responsibilities. We discussed OSHA standards. We discussed OSHA inspections. And we discussed the safety and health resources, including how to file a complaint.